Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin with chapter 49, verse 28. Chapter 49, verse 28. This is after all the brachos to all of the children. Now it says in the pasuk, Kol Elah Shivtei Yisrael Shnei Masar. All of these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father said to them, and he blessed them. Each one was blessed as was appropriate for his blessing. Which, you sort of have to ask yourself, why did that phrase even have to be said? Like, it's obvious each one was given their own blessing. Hopefully, he gave them the right blessings. I mean, we would have confidence that he gave them the right blessings. What's taught by that phrasing? But first, before that, there's a sforno over here on Pasuk Chav Ches. It actually fits into a comment Nancy made earlier in the week, so I thought it might be of interest to see this together. Sforno Pasuk Chav Ches. Kol Elah Shivtei Yisrael. These are the tribes of Israel. Now, just think about this for a second. Not exactly, because did Ephraim and Manasseh get special mention when on Yaakov's deathbed? No. Who did Yaakov interface with from their families on his deathbed? Yosef. So after all this, it says, and these are the tribes. Well, not really. These aren't the tribes, right? So it's just an interesting thing to think about. Sforno Chavches, Kol Elah Shivtei Yisrael. Elah Shehiskir Yaakov Kan, Hema Yudbei Shvatim Be'emes. These individuals mentioned by Yaakov here are truly the 12 tribes. Asher nichtavu ala choshen v'ha'efo d'sikar l'fnei Hashem. It says the Sforno on the breastplate. These were the 12. Each tribe was represented. A stone on the breastplate of the high priest. These are the names that were on the breastplate. And it's not Ephraim and Manasseh, but Yosef was on the breastplate. Vayu bebris har grizim v'har eval. And these were the ones with the covenant, with the mountains, with har grizim and har eval. Ukenegdam heikim Moshe shteim esrei matzeva. And after they at har grizim and har eval, Moshe talks about having 12 stones that would be set as a monument. It's with these 12 in mind that he sets this. V'Yoshua heikim avanim b'yardim u'Gilgal. And when they crossed the Jordan and at Gilgal, they also established stones, also with these 12 in mind. V'Elio heikim avanim b'mizbeach. And Elio established stones by his altar. Aval Menashe v'Ephraim lo hayu b'minyan hashvatim. When we talk about the tribes, we don't mean Manasseh and Ephraim separately instead of Yosef. Sulasi be'inyan Yerusha Sa'aretz va'nimshach eleha. Beheder Shevet Levi. So the Sforno says, when we talk about the 12, when we think about the 12, when we talk about the Jewish people split up into 12 groups, we mean Yosef. And the only time we really mean Ephraim and Manasseh separately, and not counting Yosef, but Ephraim and Manasseh as two entities, is for the division of the land of Israel. And that, of course, is where Levi is not getting sort of a specific section of the land of Israel. This is an interesting Sforno. I'm not sure everyone would agree with everything the Sforno just said, to be honest with you, but it is interesting. It definitely gives more of a feel for what we were talking about, that it's always in the number 12. Sforno kind of breaks it down more specifically. Okay, let's go now to, let's see Rashi on Pasuk Chav Ches. Rashi on Pasuk Chav Ches. Remember, we said the phrase Ish asher kibir chaso beirach osam, that he blessed each one like his blessing. So what's meant by that? Look at the second Rashi on the Pasuk. Ish asher kibir chaso bracha ha'asida lavo al kol echad ve'echad. What it means, he gave each one his appropriate bracha, is everything Yaakov said ultimately took place. In other words, it wasn't just wishful thinking, it was actual. It took a while to transpire, but everything that he said was indeed like the blessing that they ultimately got, that ultimately occurred in their lives. So we say Beirach Osam, he blessed them. The grammar in the pasuk is strange. Each one like his blessing, he blessed. Should have said him. He blessed each individual like his blessing. He says, each one like his blessing, he blessed them. Rashi says, it should have been, he blessed each person like his blessing. Why does it say he blessed them? So Rashi says that the pshat is that each individual got a bracha appropriate for them, and then they were all included as a group in everyone else's brachos. That's why it says he blessed them. Interesting idea. But now let's go to the Orach Chaim of Pasuk Chavches. I think the third Orach Chaim on the Pasuk. Asher kivir chasal, like his blessing. Peirush haro ilo kifi bechinas nishmaso ukifi maasav. Each recipient of a bracha received the appropriate bracha for the nature of his soul and the nature of his actions. Ki yesh l'chol hadas, you should realize, ki anfashos kol achas yesh la bechinas hamala. Some different people have different unique attributes. Yesh lasa kahuna. There are some people who are destined for being a Kohen. V'yesh malchus. There are some people destined for kingship. V'yesh keser Torah. And some people destined for Torah scholarship. V'yesh gvura. And some people destined for unique strength. V'yesh osher. Some people destined for wealth. V'yesh hatzlacha. Some people destined for unique success. And so God intended, not God, Yaakov intended with prophecy to give each person the bracha that really fit them. And this is of course we appreciate it. It's just a powerful thing to think about when we think about people, particularly when we think about children and the like, the firm belief that everyone has some special attribute, and what we have to try to do as family, as friends, as neighbors, whatever it is to try to help them find their special twist. And Dor Chaim says that's what's meant in the pasuk here, that he blessed everyone with the blessing that was appropriate for him. Okay, let's go on to verse 33. Vayichal Yaakov l'tzavos espanav. Yaakov finished giving instruction to his sons. Vayasof raglov el hamita. Gathered his legs to the bed. Vayikva, for lack of a better translation, he expired. Vayasef alamav, and he was gathered into his nation. Means he passed away. But what's very interesting is normally in the Torah, when a person passes away, it says Vayikva vayomos. Vayomos is to die. It doesn't say it here. Look at the Ramban in Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vayikva vayosef. Misa lo namrubo. Doesn't say the actual word of death. V'yamur Rabbeinu Yaakov Avinu lo meis, famous Gemara. They are based on this, or based on actually another pasuk as well. Yaakov never died. That's what it says in the Gemara. Lashon Rashi. So now the Ramban says, hold on a second. Well, Das Rav was saying regarding the opinion of our rabbis, Hari Yaakov, his kirmitza ba'atzmo. Yaakov talks about his imminent death. He says, I'm going to die, and God should be with you. Maybe, says the Ramban, it means that he didn't know he wasn't going to die. He didn't die. He was wrong. He thought he was going to die. He didn't die. Maybe. Or maybe he didn't want to take the covet. You should know I'm never really going to die. He didn't want to talk that way. A little bit tougher. The brothers of Yosef saw that their father died. That's after the fact. Sounds like he died. Ki lahem mesu. Sounds like they think he died. Maybe they didn't know from such things. But he says, here's the pshat. Vinyan HaMedrash says that the real meaning of this medrash, that the soul of the pious person is always bound up in the bond of life. That's like we say in the Kelmalis. Vizu t'chofef alav kol hayom. And this life covers over the person, over the soul all day. Loveshes levush hasheni shelo yivshetena aruma. So in other words, the idea is, the Ramban says what's meant over here is that Yaakov Avinu was a uniquely pious person, and so a uniquely pious person never really dies. I think the easiest way to look at that is the impact a person made in the world keeps the person alive, so to say, not biologically, not anatomically, but spiritually speaking. As long as people are still doing what they, what they taught and what they modeled, the person is still with us. I should mention this phrase Ramban says, people ask about it all the time. You ever go to a cemetery and you see on the bottom of the memorial stone, Tuf Nun Sadi Beis Hey, you kind of wonder what that stands for. So that stands for the blessing. May the person's soul be bound up in the bond of life. So that's the kind of thing the Ramban is talking about here. So it's just interesting to think about. Okay, let's go to verse 20. Let's go to verse 20. Very end of the parsha, the brothers think now Yosef's going to let them have it. Maybe Yosef was being nice all this time out of respect for Yaakov, but now Yaakov's dead. Now they're going to get it over the head. So they come and they say, our father said that we should tell you that he wants you to be nice to us. It's a whole discussion if they're lying or not. But in any event, one way or the other, they're really afraid. Verse 19, Vayomer Alehem Yosef al tiro. Yosef says to them, don't be afraid. Ki asachas Elokim am I instead of God. 20, Vatem chashavtem alai ra'ah. You thought upon me to do bad. Elokim chashava l'tova. God thought of it as good. It all turned out okay. Amazing psukim. It's a really interesting sforim on this. Sforim on pasuk chaf. V'atem chashavtem alai ra'ah. Hine pulaschem haisa bishgaga. What you did was under a mistaken impression. Shechashavtem osi l'rodef. You thought I was out to get you. We discussed this a little bit at the time. You thought I was out to get you. If you would have been correct about your assessment of the situation, what you would have done would have been all right. So I presume this one was saying, you thought upon me bad, you thought I was up to no good. Elokim chashava l'tova. God considered it as good. Himtzi bochem zos hashgaga tachlis hatov. God understood that you meant well, and he saw to it that your misunderstanding action would turn out okay. So the greatest proof that you meant well is that God allowed, through some remarkable Rube Goldberg of life, God allowed the result of your action to be okay for our family. Had you really meant ill, God would have never allowed you to be the vehicle for such blessing. That seems to be the pshat this one is taking. It's an interesting perspective. So we discussed this morning this morning about 12 and 13, how that works. Discussed Rashi and the Ohr HaChaim about the phrase Ishak Asher Kavir Berach, that he blessed them like the appropriate blessing. The Ramban about the idea of Yaakov Avinu not dying. And we discussed the Sforno as to the perspective that Yosef shares for his brothers as to why he was ready to forgive them.